There's a bit of a frenzy happening with the Patek Philippe Nautilus these days. You're more likely to spot extraterrestrials at your local Patek Philippe store than come across a 5711, and if you do manage to find one for sale, the prices are soaring to about 3 times its original cost. I mean, by the time you read this, that might even be considered a steal. It's that chaotic. However, for those lacking the influence, power, or funds to crack the code of this phenomenon, there's an alternative: the Piaget Polo S. Now, you might be wondering, how can this obvious imitator even be mentioned in the same breath as the almighty Nautilus? And that's a valid point. One is undeniably inspired by the other, even with a sleeker design, reorganized date window, and a flipped bracelet finish trying to suggest otherwise. But is it truly comparable? Well, yes, but not exactly as you might expect. The inception of the original Piaget Polo was a direct response to the seismic shift in the landscape of watchmaking, as it cleaved into 2 distinct categories: the emergence of battery-powered, technologically advanced timepieces that were both affordable and accurate, and the burgeoning market for opulent, indulgent luxury watches. For Piaget and others in the industry, including Patek Philippe, this juncture represented a pivotal moment, a record scratch in the slow evolution of the Swiss watch industry, notorious for being a somewhat languid tortoise in terms of realization and reaction. It wasn't until Audemars Piguet deciphered the code for avoiding impending industry doom that others started to follow suit. For Patek Philippe, this revelation manifested in the form of the 1976 Nautilus, while for Piaget, it took shape with the introduction of the Polo in 1979. Interestingly, the roles were reversed in this narrative. The Nautilus, though a groundbreaking design, emulated Audemars Piguet's Royal Oak from a few years prior, whereas the Polo took a decidedly different trajectory. Fashioned entirely in gold, the Polo was conceived for individuals who shared a penchant for the equestrian sport of polo, a pastime reserved for those affluent enough to spare their own legs. A polo enthusiast was precisely the sort of person who demanded a timepiece that was not only immediately recognizable, but also exorbitantly priced. Yet, Piaget didn't merely take a leaf from Patek Philippe's book and make subtle adjustments to sidestep copyright concerns with the Royal Oak. No, they went all in. While an integrated bracelet was a commonality, the parallels ended there. Envision an Omega constellation with a segmented bracelet, but with those segments extending seamlessly around the watch, through the case, and even across the dial, all cast in opulent gold. It was a bold move, to say the least, and it worked wonders, constituting a third of Piaget's sales by the year 1980. Picture the success of a distinctive solid gold watch in the 80s, a decade indelibly marked by its ostentatious opulence. But it's not the 80s anymore, and even though the Polo was a perfect fit for that time, it hasn't aged well. So here comes the Polo S. Sure, it might resemble the Nautilus, but I think it's different enough to let that slide. The real question is, can it match the Nautilus in quality as much as it does in appearance? To be fair to the Polo S, it only needs to be half as good as the Patek Philippe when looking at how well it holds its value, maybe just a tenth if you put on your accountant hat. However, the Nautilus appreciating in value seems to make more sense. But let's consider the fact that if you're in the position to buy one, you're probably not seeking advice from talking heads on the internet. So let's bring out the super close-up lens and take a closer look. While Patek Philippe is often seen as a top-notch brand for making high-quality watches, Piaget holds its own reputation too. At different times, Piaget has been behind some impressive achievements, like creating the world's thinnest mechanical watch, the world's thinnest automatic watch, and the world's thinnest tourbillon. So, in a way, we should thank Piaget for letting us closely compare 2 important categories in high-end watchmaking. Now, when it comes to cost, Piaget, though not exactly cheap, sits towards the lower end of the high-end Swiss watchmaking spectrum. Patek Philippe, on the other hand, is positioned more towards the upper middle, leaving room for other prestigious brands like Breguet and Roger Smith. And there's a noticeable difference. Examining closely, you might initially think they look similar, but it's like any interest or hobby. The more you know, the more details you notice. Take the dials for example. The Piaget Polo S has this stunning sapphire blue finish that shines through its transparent surface. The Nautilus, in contrast, not only has a subtle smoky gradient, but also one of the most delicate sunburst patterns, giving it a twinkle within the dial. The same level of detail applies to the brushed and polished finishes on the cases and bracelets. On the Piaget, you get a clean, even brushwork and a deep, glossy polish. However, with the Patek Philippe, these finishes feel more integrated into the material, like the brushing is as smooth as silk, and the polish resembles a liquid. The beveling along the case and bracelet adds an extra touch of craftsmanship that sets it apart from the Piaget. Predictably, the movements also reflect the difference in budget. While both watches have their own in-house calibers, Piaget's 1110p and Patek Philippe's 26330SC, it's like the Patek Philippe has higher resolution, maintaining clarity as the Piaget starts to soften. You might think I'm being overly critical, and you're right, the differences are noticeable, especially under the right light and magnification. Yet, on any regular day, in any typical situation, the distinctions may not be as apparent. It's a bit like the law of diminishing returns, making the decision between these two even more challenging. So, which of these two watches, similar yet with distinct differences, is the best? Well, that really depends on you as much as it does on the watches. If you're ready to shell out the money or wait patiently for a considerable time, the Patek Philippe provides a superior experience. However, this excellence is not only matched, but even surpassed by some other watches that come with a more affordable price tag, including different models from Patek Philippe. Now, the Piaget is considered the less superior watch, but not by the huge margin you might have expected. Especially when you take into account the substantial difference in price. This makes it a more appealing option. If you're looking for my suggestion, I'd say this. I wouldn't necessarily be putting my money into a Swiss watch at all. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us at Ventichic. Make sure to give this video a like and leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can stay updated with all our latest content. See you in the next video.